In fantasy football, your league isn't technically won in the draft, but you definitely can make a lot of poor decisions that can be very tough to escape in fantasy football. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about 9 players that I'm 100% avoiding in 2025 fantasy football. But before we can break down these players, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. So without further ado, let's get into 9 players I'm 100% avoiding in 2025 fantasy football. We begin with the first player that I'm 100% avoiding in 2025 fantasy football drafts, and that's going to be Jonathan Taylor, running back of the Indianapolis Colts. Current ADP from ESPN, CBS, NFL, and Sleeper have him as the RB number 9 at pick number 21, meaning in a 12-team league, he comes off the board in the second round with the 9th pick. Now, Jonathan Taylor is really a running back that I genuinely believe is one of the most talented running backs in the NFL, but there are a lot of question marks with Jonathan Taylor that ultimately concern me too much to select him at ADP. It is important to understand that if these players were to fall past ADP, I would be a lot more comfortable drafting them. I don't hate players, I just hate ADPs, and Jonathan Taylor is a prime example of that. Jonathan Taylor coming off the board as the running back 9. Running backs coming off the board behind him, Bucky Irving, Kyren Williams, Chase Brown, James Cook, Alvin Kamara, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, and Omarion Hampton. I have Chase Brown ranked ahead of Jonathan Taylor. I have Bucky Irving, Kyren Williams, and Omarion Hampton all ranked ahead of Jonathan Taylor. So why would I take JT at the end of the second round when I could take Chase Brown at the beginning of the third round, or Kyren Williams, or potentially get Omarion Hampton later on inside of the third round, right? So Jonathan Taylor is just off of my board based upon the fact that I like other players more than him who are coming off the board behind him. Jonathan Taylor also has health concerns. Average games played over the past 3 seasons for some of the major running backs for the 2025 fantasy football season. Jonathan Taylor in 2024 plays 14 games, 2023, 10 games, 2022, 10 games. On average, over the last 3 seasons, he has played 12 total games per season. Now, I get I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sins, right? And I am not going to pretend that I can predict injuries in the NFL. Jonathan Taylor could easily play all 17 games this season, but that is something to worry about. I also very much worry about the fact that last year was a tale of 2 seasons for Jonathan Taylor. And what I mean by that is for the first 11 starts of the season, Jonathan Taylor was just kind of meh, right? He wasn't completely terrible, completely sinking your team's battleship, but he also wasn't really doing too much. He was averaging 14.03 PPR points per game. But then, in the fantasy playoffs, if you got to the fantasy playoffs with Jonathan Taylor, you more than likely won your league because the guy put the team on his back. He scored 30.8 PPR points per game in those 3 games. He averaged 2 touchdowns per game rushing. Right? Do we really expect him to be on that pace? And again, it is very damning when for the first 11 games of the season compared to the final 3, he more than doubled his PPR points per game total. And normally we sit on here and we wax poetically about, hey, if you start off your season kind of meh, and then the final 8, 9, the final 7 games of the season, you look fantastic, then yeah, that's a very strong indicator that you are going to absolutely go ballistic in the next season. But here, Jonathan Taylor only had that 3-game split where he was really putting up belt-to-ass numbers. So I'm very concerned about his health. I'm concerned about the offense as a whole. While Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback, what's going to happen with that? Are they going to pull out Daniel Jones halfway into the season? Is this going to be a Daniel Jones? Then you see Anthony Richardson a couple games later. Then you see a few games Anthony Richardson. They're like, oh, this is wrong. They go back to Daniel Jones, and then the season closes out with Anthony Richardson as the starting quarterback again, right? This feels like a very, very spotty scenario. Again, this really has nothing to do with my player take of how good Jonathan Taylor is. He is just a victim of being drafted a little bit too early, in my opinion, having injury risk and his season last year being very complicated and just not something I feel super confident investing into, because I don't think Daniel Jones taking over is magically going to make the Indianapolis Colts one of the best offenses in the NFL. At number 2, we got James Cook, running back of the Buffalo Bills, ADP running back 13 at pick number 30. Now, the biggest reason as to why I believe James Cook is going to fail this season is the biggest reason as to why I wanted to draft him last year. Last season, coming into fantasy football drafts, I told everyone and their mother that you need to draft James Cook because I thought that his touchdown number was going to increase. I thought, in his rookie year, in his sophomore year, 3 touchdowns in 2022, 6 touchdowns in 2023. What happens if James Cook just gets a little bit more lucky on one of the best offenses in the NFL? He breaks free, he's soaring, he's flying like Troy Bolton, and he scores like 15 touchdowns. Well, last year he scored 18 total touchdowns, and that is why he was so great for your fantasy team and why everyone that listened to my advice last season was incredibly happy with their selection of James Cook. The problem is last year is when you score 18 total touchdowns, you would think that running back is probably a top 5 running back, at least in terms of points per game, right? Because they scored so many touchdowns. Well, James Cook scored 18 total fucking touchdowns and was the RB11 in points per game and the RB8 on the season. So he wasn't top 5 in either category. And the reason why I believe that James Cook touchdown number is going to end up shrinking is because of the snap share on the offense and because they have Josh Allen as well. Last year, in terms of snap share at the running back position, James Cook ranked 35th with just 49.2% of the snaps. And he scored 18 total touchdowns with that few amount of snaps. So if Ray Davis is more involved and maybe Josh Allen gets a couple more rushing touchdowns, then James Cook is a terrible pick in fantasy drafts. And James Cook also isn't the prototypical build of a dude that's going to score 15, 16, 17, 18 touchdowns in any given season, right? He's not built like a guy like Derrick Henry, right? Who is just a certified bulldozer inside of the red zone. He's 5'11", 199 pounds. Now, I fully expect the Buffalo Bills to be an elite offense again. And I do think James Cook is probably going to score a decent amount of touchdowns. But if he just gets 12 touchdowns instead of 18, then he is going to plummet down the overall rankings at the running back position. Again, this isn't even also a I hate James Cook take. I think James Cook's really good. He ended up burning my Dolphins defense twice last season. It felt brutal to watch. But James Cook, ultimately, if the touchdown luck doesn't go his way again, if the 4-leaf clover in his pocket runs out, the horseshoe that he's got in his pocket ends up falling out, then James Cook is going to potentially end up as a big, fat bust. He was pretty efficient last year, 12th in yards per touch, 14th in dominator rating, but he's not this super elite pass catching back either. And again, they have Ray Davis, they have other guys they can use on the goal line. So for me, I just don't think James Cook is scoring 18 total touchdowns, so I don't feel comfortable drafting him at ADP. Next up, we move to Magic Mike Evans, wide receiver of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, ADP wide receiver 16 at pick number 39. Another guy where, again, I don't hate the player. I have been banging the drum for Mike Evans ever since he entered out into the NFL, out of Texas A&M with Johnny Football. I have been talking up Mike Evans, and Mike Evans has paid off basically every single year. 11 straight seasons with 1,000 or more yards, 6 of 11 seasons with 10 or more touchdowns, and he has not finished outside the top 18 in PPR points per game since 2017. But I looked under the microscope and found reasons why you might want to be more nervous about Mike Evans than you previously were. If you look at last season as a whole, sure, things were all fine and dandy. He's the wide receiver 10 in terms of points per game and the wide receiver 14 in PPR. Very nice. I like. Shout out to Borat, right? Things are all fine and dandy. But when you look under the hood, you see some warts with Mike Evans. Weeks 1 through 7, when Chris Godwin was playing, and playing very well at that, Mike Evans was doing his disappearing act. He was hitting the John Cena, you can't see him, because he was the wide receiver 21 in points per game with 13.6 PPR points per game. And that was with scoring 0.86 touchdowns per game. Now, I don't really ever think that the touchdown value of Mike Evans will get suppressed. because the guy is a fucking demon inside of the red zone. The guy can make any catch possible inside the red zone, so I don't think his touchdown value is really going to be sold down the river. But what we see down the stretch of the season from weeks 8 through 18 when Chris Godwin is hurt, he is averaging 20.7 PPR points and is the wide receiver 2 in points per game, going from 6.43 targets per game to 9.29, a target share increase from 20.5% to 29.6%, a reception increase from 3.71 to 6.86, a receiving yards uptick of 47.86 to 95.57. The yards per target and the yards per route run went up, so did the amount of routes he ran per game. So you might be thinking, Nick, Chris Godwin's not going to be ready for the start of the season. If you want to know who is going to be ready, Emeka Egbuka, rookie wide receiver out of Ohio State, a wide receiver who everyone in the coaching staff and Baker Mayfield are getting down on their knees and giving this guy the gawk 9,000 special. So while I don't think Mike Evans is going to be a complete and utter bust, and if you draft him, he is going to absolutely suplex your fantasy team. He is going to bury your fantasy football team out in the backyard. I don't end up think that's going to happen, but I do worry about the fact that I don't really see that top 12 finish out of Mike Evans this year, and he is yet another year older. I get there's some guys that are just immune to the age cliff, right? Some guys are able to dip, dodge, dive, and duck away from the age cliff. Derrick Henry, Mike Evans. But one day the age cliff is going to knock on the door, and it's going to be the kiss of death for a guy like Mike Evans. So while I don't think he's going to be a complete and utter fucking failure, a disgrace of large proportions at ADP, I'm just liking guys that are being drafted behind him significantly better. So Mike Evans, to me, just isn't a guy that's going to be on very many of my teams. He just feels like the kind of pick where you're drafting him because you know who he is. For one, he's fucking Mike Evans, one of the best wide receivers I've seen in my personal lifetime, one of the most consistent guys, but he just doesn't really have that league-winning upside, that top 5, top 10 upside, in my opinion. So for that reason, I am out on Magic Mike Evans. At number 4, we have, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs, current ADP, quarterback 6 at pick 45. Before, though, we talk about Mr. Kermit the Frog, Patrick Mahomes, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description, you'll receive your free pick, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus funds, as well as my draft guide sent to the email used to sign up on Underdog, sent to your email the very next day, as long as you deposit $10 and play through those $10. If you don't know what Underdog is, it is the best place to do best ball drafts in the world. And you're like, Nick, what is best ball? I am unfamiliar. Well, best ball is the best part about fantasy football. It's the draft, and that's it. There's no waivers, no trades, no in-season management. At the end of every single week, Underdog automatically puts the highest scores into your lineup for you. The biggest tournament over on Underdog, $25 to enter, $15 million in total prizes, Best Ball Mania, $2 million to first, $1 million to second, just $25 to enter. You might be thinking, Nick, I don't really want to put $25 down on a bunch of different drafts. Well, you could also check out the puppy, $5 to enter, $100,000 to first place. So please make sure you guys do check out Underdog, link in the video description, or by using promo code Notorious. And if you guys are just interested in getting my draft guide, maybe you're already on Underdog, you don't want to sign up on Underdog, make sure you sign up with the Patreon, link in the video description, for $12.50 a month. You only have to sign up for 1 month, then you can cancel, just get the draft guide. That's perfectly fine with me. Now, when it goes about talking about Patrick Mahomes here, I noticed something that has started to really dip off for Patrick Mahomes. And as these numbers have dipped off, so have his fantasy points per game. 2018, he's averaging 8.8 yards per attempt as the QB1. 2019, again, this points per game, 8.3 yards per attempt, QB number 6. 8.1 in 2020, number 2 in points per game. 7.4 in 2021, number 5. 8.1 in 2022, number 2. 7 in 2023, QB 10. And 6.8 last season as the QB 11 in points per game. The team is not taking as many deep shots down the field, and thus Patrick Mahomes' fantasy football value has been suppressed. Now, I still do believe that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL, and I would do everything possible to get Patrick Mahomes to be the quarterback of my Miami Dolphins, because with Patrick Mahomes instead of Tua Tagovailoa, maybe, just maybe, the fantasy gods and the NFL gods will align, the chakra will align, and maybe we can win a fucking playoff game for the first time in my life. But ultimately, just because he's a great quarterback in real life doesn't mean he puts up great fantasy football production. Last year, the team makes it all the way to the fucking Super Bowl, and he's the quarterback 11 in fantasy points per game because the Chiefs are now, due to the too high safety, the way that teams are playing in the NFL, they are not going to be taking as many chances. Fat man Andy Reid, the Kool-Aid man, isn't taking as many deep chances down the field, and they're playing things a lot more safer. With Pacheco healthy, they're going to be trying to run the ball and play great defense. So while Patrick Mahomes can always pull the rabbit out the hat and put belt to ass up against any defense, and he will have those big games, frankly, the team doesn't want him putting up those crazy numbers, or they don't, I guess, need him to put up those crazy numbers like the 5,000 passing yard seasons or the 3 straight seasons with over 4,700 passing yards and 37 plus passing touchdowns. Plus, he's not going to be rushing in a bunch of touchdowns, just 2 total rushing touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. So again, I still believe that Patrick Mahomes is the best QB in the NFL, but for fantasy football, his numbers keep dipping. So I just think at ADP, quarterback 6 overall is a very steep price to be paying for the guy who's been the quarterback 11 and quarterback 10 in points per game over the last 2 seasons. At number 5, we got Sam Laporta, tight end of the Detroit Lions, ADP tight end 4 at pick number 48, back-to-back seasons as a top 8 tight end in fantasy football. Now, just like we talked about with Jonathan Taylor early on in the video, my problem with Sam Laporta is 100% his ADP. Coming off the board as the tight end 4, around 12 picks after you can get George Kittle. Now, to me, there's a clear big 3 at the tight end position this year. D-Wade, LeBron, and Bosch. Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, and George Kittle. After that, there is a big grouping of tight ends. Sam Laporta, TJ Hawkinson, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, David Njoku, Evan Ingram, who I all believe could be the tight end number 4. So why would I ever draft Sam Laporta at pick 48 when I can get Evan Ingram at pick 78? And again, sometimes the ADPs aren't going to actually play out in your draft. Sometimes you might be able to get Evan Ingram 10, even 20 picks later than that. So why am I paying the piper to draft Sam Laporta when I can just draft a different tight end later? Again, it has nothing to do with Sam Laporta. He went into last year banged up. A lot of people had him from weeks 1 through 9. He's averaging 8 PPR points per game. Not good at all. Down the stretch of the season, he's averaging 13.8 as the tight end number 7. The guy clearly has the ability. I was banging the drum for him, giving him the Sukala Mink special, metaphorically, of course, in his rookie year, talking about how you need to draft him in fantasy. So I've been a day 1 Sam Laporta enjoyer, a day 1 Sam Laporta supporter, and still I just cannot be paying that draft capital for him with the other tight ends going later. Again, it just strictly has to do with ADP. If you told me that Sam Laporta was coming off the board as the tight end 8 or 9 instead, I would be all over him like white on rice. Next up, we move to Zay Flowers, wide receiver of the Baltimore Ravens, ADP wide receiver 26 at pick 61. Now, Zay Flowers is a guy that I've talked up both years of his NFL career. I've talked about how I believe that Zay Flowers is an incredible talent coming out of college, and I believe that he is clearly Lamar Jackson's favorite target in this offense to throw the ball to. And honestly, that has all been true, right? Zay Flowers is the number 1 receiver on this team, and he's played relatively well. But the thing is, he's been the wide receiver 32 and the wide receiver 31 in points per game. And to me, I don't really see him beating out his ADP as the wide receiver number 26. 2023, he has 108 targets. 2024, he has 116 targets. In both seasons, 2023, he scores 5 touchdowns. 2024, he scores 4 receiving touchdowns. And Zay Flowers is the kind of guy that any given week, he could be that firecracker in your fantasy lineup. The kind of guy that can catch a deep piss missile from Lamar Jackson and maybe score a touchdown or 2 and put up a very big game. And frankly, he might be the reason why you win any given week. But he also is the kind of guy that if he doesn't get that touchdown, could potentially be sabotaging your fantasy team. This is a guy that's in an offense that wants to run the ball. The game plan is run the ever-living shit out of the ball. And that would be my game plan too if I was Harbaugh, if I had Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Last year, in terms of team pass play percentage, they only threw the ball 46.45% of the time, ranking 31st in the NFL, only behind Philadelphia, who threw the ball 43.71% of the time. And this isn't just a one-year thing. Even without Derrick Henry in 2023, they threw the ball just 50.08% of the time. So this is an offense that runs on running the football. Zay Flowers isn't Megatron, right? He doesn't have this strong stature, this strong build, 5'9", 182. Again, he gets things done. He is a great wide receiver in terms of efficiency, 10th yards after the catch, 17th yards per out run, 13th yards per team pass attempt, 9th in target separation. The guy has the ability, but he is 5'9", 182 pounds. And he has scored 4 touchdowns last year and 5 touchdowns in 2023. Now, some people will always say, Nick, there's always that positive regression. You talked about it last year with James Cook. That's why I drafted James Cook. You're so smart. Why are you afraid of drafting Zay Flowers? I'm afraid of drafting Zay Flowers because I don't think that the luck will go his way like it went with James Cook last season. Because you know that James Cook was kind of just getting fucked over for the first 2 years of his career. That's why he wasn't scoring touchdowns, whereas Zay Flowers doesn't seem to have that same ability. Plus, they bring in DeAndre Hopkins. And look, I understand that DeAndre Hopkins is geriatric at this point. DeAndre Hopkins might need a cane to go out there and route up in the red zone. But guess what? DeAndre Hopkins is still, even as an unk, even at the rough age of 7,000 years old that DeAndre Hopkins is at this point, Nuck himself, right? The guy can still catch passes in the red zone. I think that's where they're going to look to use him a ton. They also have Mark Andrews, touchdown demon. You ever heard of him? And eventually, they're going to have Isaiah Likely as well. So in terms of targets inside of the red zone, the money area, Zay Flowers is nowhere to be found in the target hierarchy. I like Zay Flowers. I think he's a great player. And any given week, he could have a big game. But ultimately, I think he is going to very much disappoint fantasy owners who expect him to pay back at ADP. At number 7, we got Joe Mixon, running back of the Houston Texans. RB26 at pick number 69. Very nice. I like. I genuinely don't understand at all how he is coming off the board at pick number 69. It just doesn't make any sense. The most recent report about Joe Mixon. The Houston Chronicle's Jonathan M. Alexander reports Joe Mixon, ankle and foot, could land on the PUP list. That would mean Mixon, dealing with a lingering foot and ankle issues, would miss at least the first 4 weeks of the regular season. Mixon is already an iffy option for week 1. He hasn't been seen out at practice, nor has he worked off to the side, which would indicate he's not 2 or 3 weeks away from returning from the foot or ankle injury he suffered off the field this past offseason. Alexander said of Mixon, who rushed for 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns in 14 games last season, the Texans officials have been vague about Mixon's status weeks ahead of the team's week 1 game against the Rams. Joe is kind of working through it. General manager Nick Caserio said Tuesday, we'll kind of take it one day at a time. Once we get a little bit closer, we'll probably have a better idea where he's going to be. But Joe is working hard, trying to be himself and be ready to go. Nick Chubb, according to Alexander, will serve as the lead back until Mixon returns, whenever that may be. Whenever that may be. That doesn't sound very positive, right? Chubb would probably share the backfield work with Damian Pierce, a pass-catching specialist, Woody Marks. So that's from August 20th. Another report from a little bit before that. Among the things the team is working through is a lingering foot/ankle injury for Pro Bowl running back Joe Mixon, suffered away from the Texans, with him progressing from a walking boot to wearing a brace to having increased mobility over the summer too. Now, still being out indefinitely while rehabbing and navigating a somewhat complicated medical issue. He remains on the non-football injury list. Did anything that I just read in those last 2 blurbs sound confident at all? Look, I get if Joe Mixon falls into like the 10th round. At some point, someone has to jump on the metaphorical grenade. Like, I'll take a grenade for you, Bruno Mars style, for Joe Mixon. I get that, right? At some point, the risk is worth it. At some point, the risk is 100% worth it for Joe Mixon, because when Joe Mixon's healthy, he could be a great running back. But also you have to understand that when Joe Mixon comes back, he's probably not going to be 100% if he does come back. And again, there are kind of some reports that are more talking about, and again, I'm as much of a doctor as Manuel Ferreira, but at the end of the day, some of these reports are saying they think he may not even play this season. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not saying that with 100% certainty, and I'm still taking Joe Mixon if he falls all the way to like the 11th round, but at ADP, it's a big fuck no, baby. He also ended up having a bit of a dip in production after the high ankle sprain last season, so he just has too much injury risk, in my opinion, to even consider him at ADP. Next up, we got Quinshon Judkins, running back of the Cleveland Browns, running back 30 at pick 88. Still, pick number 88 for Quinshon Judkins. ESPN's Adam Schefter reports the Browns and running back Quinshon Judkins have been unable to agree to a deal despite the criminal charges against Judkins being dismissed. The NFL still plans to run its own investigation into Judkins and the domestic battery charges that led to his arrest in July. The police report that followed Judkins' arrest said the bruising was clearly evident on the woman he allegedly assaulted, which undoubtedly complicates the Browns' decision to sign him, even if he won't be charged in court. We'll see if this deal can be reached before the start of the season, but it wouldn't be surprising if the decision is to put it off until the league concludes its investigation. So he hasn't even been signed yet. He hasn't been in practice yet. Does that sound good at all? No, it doesn't. ESPN's Daniel Oifusi believes Browns running back, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, bro, running back Dylan Sampson says he will push Jerome Ford for carries in the backfield early on. The Browns selected Sampson in the 4th round of this year's draft, with the expectation being that he would see a split with Ford and fellow rookie Quinshon Judkins. Judkins did not participate in training camp and is yet to sign his rookie deal. Even if he does eventually join the team, it will take a few weeks for him to get up to speed, and he's also at risk for suspension. Again, he hasn't been. This report is telling you exactly what everyone already knows. Even if he comes back and is good to go, he signs, they're not suspending him. It's going to take some time to get ramped up into a shitty offense. So I get why you might take Dylan Sampson late. I get why you might take Jerome Ford late. But why the fuck are you drafting Quinshon Judkins, who may not play a single game this year, may not even sign his fucking contract this season? Why are you drafting him as the running back 30? Why? It doesn't make any sense. Again, oh my gosh, he was so great at Ohio State. I agree. I was all aboard the Quinshon Judkins bandwagon until all this stuff happened, and then I immediately abandoned ship. At number 9, the final guy to discuss is going to be Javonte Williams, running back of the Dallas Cowboys. Running back 36 off the board at pick 112. Now, if you drafted Javonte Williams, you have been swindled every single year. Pretty sure even his rookie year, his ADP was higher than his finished. He's been the RB 36, the RB 31. 2022, he only plays in 4 games, 10.5 PPR points per game. And 2021, the RB 22 in points per game. His best season was his rookie year. Now, you might be like, Nick, did you not know that the Yahoo reported Javonte Williams is expected to be the Cowboys' Week 1 starter? No shit. You want to know why that's a no shit scenario? Because it was probably never going to be Week 1 Miles Sanders. I don't think that Jerry Jones, the team, would ever do that. I just don't think so. And Jaden Bonnie Blue, who could have potentially been the RB1, got whacked out. So I get it, Nick. Why not just take the starting running back on the Cowboys at pick 112 as the RB 36? Now, if it was Rico Dowdle, I'd be banging the drum. Holy shit, you can get Rico Dowdle as the RB 36? But Rico Dowdle will be going higher than this because Rico Dowdle's actually good. I know, Nick, it's been a couple years since those injuries for Javonte Williams. He's finally going to be back. Do we really believe that? Even most of the reports out of camp haven't been oogling and ogling over Javonte. They're just like, hey, he's the lead back. So unless you're in a points per starting running back for week number 1 point league, he's not going to do shit. And once Jaden Blue returns, I think the job's going to get taken away from Javonte Williams, and he's going to be the more usable back. Plus, Javonte Williams isn't necessarily a crazy pass-catching running back, right? This is going to be a team that's going to be down in games if Micah Parsons doesn't sign. I don't think the defense is going to be very good. He don't return, and they're going to have to be throwing the ball a ton, and then Javonte Williams gets iced out even further. I'm just not falling for it. In terms of efficiency last year, 37th in yards per touch, 54th in true yards per carry. In an offense with Sean Payton, who normally will be able to turn any fucking semblance of skill into greatness at the running back position. But yet, Javonte Williams didn't do shit. So thank you guys all for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Check out the Patreon, link in the video description. Get my rankings, half PPR, full PPR. If you got your draft tonight, next week, make sure you do check that out. It will help you out, and it will help me out as well. I love you guys so much. Genuinely, thank you guys for all the support that we have seen over the last couple of weeks, and we're going to continue to eat all the way through the season. Love you long time. Check out one of the videos on the screen if you haven't seen already. Have a great one. As always, good boy.